welcome everybody to the Magic Beans podcast. We are back again for episode number 88. I'm your host tonight, and my name is Shorty, and I have a couple of beans on the line with me. So tonight we have Cracker. How's it going, mate?
Very well, thanks, mate. How are you?
Pretty good. And we also have Chewy. How's it going, Chew?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Just like this completely random, let's just take this podcast straight off the rails. I just find it funny, like it's something that Australians do all the time. Like your nickname is Chewy, but you just abbreviate that to Chew. And it happens to me all the time. Like my nickname is Shorty, and I've been called all sorts of variations of Shorty over the years. It's just, anyway, random.
Cracker doesn't get shortened very often, though. There's not many good options there, so I'm all right with that.
No, it's the Australian thing. It's like
it very much is.
The other way to do it is if you've got a single syllable name, we'll add another syllable on it as a nickname, which is counterproductive to what nicknames are meant for. But how many Johns out there are Jono? Or Ben is Benny, right? Shout out Benny R. But it's it's such a weird Aussie thing. There you go. That's the height of our culture right there.
Your name is Matthew, but you would get called Matt or Matty or something along those lines. Like my name is Tristan, and I actually get called at work Tristo.
Tristo.
Anyway.
I think I've said it before, but I knew you for many, many years before I had any idea your name was Tristan. Yeah. And someone said, "Hey, you should go talk to Tristan." I was like, "Who is that?"
Yeah.
True story. We were writing the invitations to our engagement party, and it was like to Kat and I looked at Jen and I went, "What's Shorty's real name again?" I'm sure I knew it, but I just, you were just Shorty.
Yep.
Anyway, good cast, boys. Good night. See you next week, everyone.
This is just let's have a chat podcast tonight. All right. Well, anyway, we probably should actually talk about some magic stuff. There is another podcast with an Aussie on it that is supposedly a magic podcast in inverted commas that spends all their time not actually talking about magic. We're not going to steal their shtick. We've got our own thing, so. We do have lots of magic stuff to talk about tonight. A few announcements and little bits and pieces. But before we get into that, Chewy, do you want to tell us about our awesome sponsors?
Absolutely. Josh and Pat's MTG Bazaar look after us so very well, which lets us look after our listeners and league participants. So they are a Facebook auction group, and they have auctions every single night, primo auctions on the weekend. Their full-time auctioneer means that they are second to none when it comes to communication, packaging, and the timeliness of their delivery. So make sure you look up Josh and Pat's MTG Bazaar. There'll be a link in the show notes. You can follow them. They do giveaways on their page. You'll pick up a bargain, no doubt. And when you do, tell them that the beans sent you.
Very good. So, Cracker's back on the cast, which means one of two things. Either there's been a banning/suspension, or there's a new set to talk about the mechanics, because that's the only reason we get you on here, isn't it, Cracker?
Yeah, that's right. There was a banning last week, so it must be time for a new set.
Yeah, like people at home are going, but Cracker's always on the cast. That, my friend, is because there's always a banning or always something new coming out.
Yes. So, this week we had a big sort of surprise announcement. It was accidentally spoiled again by Wizards themselves this time. They accidentally posted the website a little bit early, or somehow posted a screenshot of it, something along those lines, and people kind of knew that this was coming the day before. But yeah, last week we had a shake-up in Historic with the suspension of Brainstorm, which, looking back on that now, seems a little bit odd, but I don't know, maybe Wizards knows what they're doing. I am not really in 100% agreement with that statement, but we'll go with it for now. But yeah, a few days after the Brainstorm suspension, we got an announcement for something called Jumpstart Historic Horizons. We've heard all of those terms before.
They're all words. They're all magic words.
All together. So we saw the Jumpstart set, what was that, like a year ago now? Something like that.
Maybe a bit longer.
Yeah, so it was a set that was released in paper as well as on Arena, with the cards going straight into Historic. And the general idea of it was that you got the packs were like themed packs, so it might be a theme of goblins or a theme of fairies, or I don't know. There's a whole bunch of random. Doctor was one of the weird things of them. Yeah, so you picked 2 packs at random and you shuffled them together, and there you go, you played your deck. So it was meant to be like super casual format, lots of fun, always different games, that sort of thing. And you could play it on Arena, and then all the cards from that went straight into Historic. And that's where we saw our good mate Muxus come from. It was a Jumpstart card, and I think the set was pretty popular. I think both of you guys might have streamed playing that.
Yep, absolutely. Loved it.
Yeah, I don't think I ever actually played it myself, but I know plenty of people did and had a lot of fun. And then there's the second part of that phrase, Historic Horizons. So we know what Historic is, and we very recently had a set called Modern Horizons 2. So what is this cracker? What is going on? You're the big announcement person. Give us the breakdown on what on earth this is.
Oh, man, I don't know. We're on to the next topic. All right, so it is exactly what you said. It is the new Jumpstart release, right? It is Historic Horizons, though. So unlike the previous Jumpstart, this will be Historic only, which means it's Arena only. There are a large number of reprints, but there's also going to be a stack of new cards, and we'll get into some of that in a minute. But it's basically going to be, a bunch of cards that we've seen very recently in Modern Horizons 2 that are being ported over to be in the Historic format. So instead of doing another anthology release, which we've seen them do a bunch of times, they decided this would be a different way to inject the cards into the card pool. So it's exactly the same as previously. You have, if you're going to play Jumpstart, which I highly recommend, it's actually a super fun format, you get, as Shorty said, theme boosters. Quickly just covering off the costs, because if you want to get into it, it does cost. It's 2,000 gold or 400 gems. It's pretty cheap, actually. It's a lot of fun. And so what happens is you get 3 packets with the name of each of the different things. So like we said, like elves and doctors and goblins or whatever it is. And then you pick one, and then you get 3 more packets, and then you get 3 packets and you pick 2 from them, right? And so then you take those 2 packs, they get shuffled together, and that is your deck. You don't have to add lands or anything like that. And so in each of those, there will be like guaranteed commons and uncommons that are in each of those. And then there's variations in what would be in the rare and mythic slot. And then you battle against someone else who's done the same thing. So if you've ever played Mini Masters when you're opening your booster boxes, it's kind of like that, right? Where you just take a pack, shuffle it up, and then play it out.
But it's a format that's actually designed for that. So you're not going to get, triple coloured spells or whatever.
All right. Let's come on now.
Sorry, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
Honestly forgot that time where you had the triple coloured rare, the random land happened to cast it, but then I counted it. That was so good.
It was not. I love Goblin Chain Whirler.
Yeah, I love countering it. It's good.
Anyway, so look, this format is super fun. Like I would really recommend it, and particularly if you think I would like to get some of these cards, because there's some pretty powerful cards, it looks like, that are going to come into Historic. It's a good way to get into it, I guess.
It's a good way to build up that collection, like Limited is for anything. It's a
sort of. It's worse than that though, because with Draft, which is probably the best way to build a collection, unless you're just buying bulk packs, you get to pick your rares. Whereas in Jumpstart, you don't.
Yeah,
you get to pick.
This is more akin to Sealed, right? And Sealed, you can't be as selective like you can in Draft, but you do get a higher number. In a Sealed event, you get 6 packs. You only get 3 packs in a Draft, right? So it's it's quantity over quality, and this is somewhere in between. This is like Sealed.
It's also
Draft.
Pretty cheap.
Like it is very cheap.
Is not
exactly.
Much.
2,000 gold is correct. It's super. It's super cheap, and it really is a lot of fun. The games are quick, and once you build your deck, you can play it for as many times as you want against people in the Jumpstart queue. And then when you get bored of that deck, you just, go again. And I will plan on streaming this when it gets released in a little while. Couple weeks, I think. The 12th of August. So it's only running for like a week.
No, it's running for about a month.
It's a month. Oh, sorry, right.
Yeah.
Good. I was reading that backwards.
Yeah, that was one of the problems with the previous Jumpstart. I think that ran for a decent amount of time, but it only ran for that time. And then once it was gone, you couldn't buy the packs, and I think we've spoken about that before, and we've definitely spoken about this off cast as well. You could no longer buy those packs, and you had the only way to get those cards was to craft them. And when you had a card like Muxus that was really popular and for quite a long time. The only way to get it was to craft it. You couldn't get it any other way, which is a bit annoying. So I'm assuming it'll be the same this time.
It will be the same.
It did. Jumpstart did come back again.
I was
about
to say that. They did run it back, and it was good still, but it's a huge injection of cards that's coming, right? We're going to see, hang on, what was the stats here? So there's 372 new to Magic Arena cards. So there's 782 cards total. So you don't get, I think you get some duplicate protection, but I don't quite know how that works.
So it says if you get a duplicate, it will use the existing version that's on Arena. So any cards that are already on MTG Arena will use existing versions and follow existing duplicate protection rules. So, you don't have to worry about cracking cards you've already got and ending up with your 5th and 6th copies, that sort of stuff. It's using the same one, so that's fine.
Cool. So there's going to be, 30 new mythics, 56 new rares, 123 new uncommons, and 180 uncommons. So there's a lot of cards. That's a lot of new to Arena cards. Right, like that's more than a normal full set. Like a full set now is what, 260 cards on average, something like that.
Yep.
So this is 782 cards in this release. So there are new cards, and because this is a digital only format, they're doing some new things. And let's get into it. So there's new mechanics. So there's a new mechanic called Seek, and Seek is a tutor. So it might say, seek a creature of the most common type in your deck. And that will be it. So it's not tutor where you go flipping through your deck and say, I'm playing the elf deck. I'm going to go get, an elf, a lord, something like that, archdruid or whatever. That's not an option. It will just flip through your deck, randomly grab an elf from it, put it in your hand, and that's it. It doesn't shuffle. You don't look. You don't get to choose. It just gives you one. So that could be the same for sorceries or lands or whatever it is. There's a bunch of different things. It will say seek something, and then it will be going to find that. Then there is perpetually, which, again, these are things that you can't really track in paper, which is why, you can't seek a card from your deck without looking at it. So that's one reason why they're doing it this way. And then perpetually says permanently change the characteristics of a card no matter where it goes afterwards. So there was one I saw recently, which was a card that gave a creature in your hand +2/+2 perpetually. That's it. So it's just always like it comes down.
So if it goes to your graveyard, if it gets exiled, wherever it is, so on the stack, its stats are permanently changed.
Correct. So its power and toughness were permanently altered. There's other things where it's like creatures' base power is perpetually 0.
There's also abilities like things can get death touch or flying or
things
like that.
It's really interesting.
Changes the mana costs and things as well.
It's one of those things where you go, it's like an aura. And then you're like, wait, it affects it everywhere and the aura can't fall off. So it is a permanent change to the actual card.
Yeah, and this
which fundamentally is really weird in terms of like, how does that work with layers? All that sort of stuff. Like, oh man, I don't want to. I guess that's why we're not dealing with it in paper.
Yeah, and I guess it's a design space that is only allowed to be really explored on a digital platform. You can't do this in paper. You can't.
The client can track it all for you.
Exactly right. And you can't randomly choose an elf from your deck without looking, as Cracker said, and tracking which So Mentor of Evos Isle is one of the perpetual cards. It's a 3-mana 2/1 flyer. Good draft card. And then when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature card in your hand. It perpetually gains flying. So you don't reveal that like you would have to prove that you've got a creature card in your hand to an opponent. It just gains that ability. So when you cast it, it's whatever your creature
it's already printed on the text.
It's already
printed in the text box.
You just can't do that in Paper Magic. Like they got we had 54 different counters in Ikoria to try to do something like this to track it. Where this is, just a permanent way to do it. It's not trying to appease both digital and paper play. So it's really, really interesting. And, it does kind of lead into the possibility, I guess, of, as predicted and as we've spoken about many times, historic being not supportable in a paper format. We're never going to see it.
But before we get too far, there's one more mechanic. which we should talk about. So like definitely want to talk about that. But while we're running off these, there's one more called Conjure, and Conjure creates cards out of thin air, is what it says here, as a digital object that acts just like a normal card would. Powerful spells and artifacts can conjure up iconic and powerful or just plain useful cards, from Tropical Island to Stormfront Pegasus. And Ponder, right? So some legitimately very, very strong cards that you just play a spell and then you get a copy of another thing. But again, you don't choose. You don't go, I'm going to conjure Ponder. You go, I'm going to conjure a sorcery. I wonder what it will be.
Now, these three cards that you've mentioned, right, are
not on the same power level.
No, but it's the perfect illustration of how Wizards sees colour and supports the colours. The blue-green card is literally the best blue-green card ever printed, right? It's Tropical Island. And then the next one is the, second best cantrip ever printed, ? Like in the top five?
Third, yeah.
And then white gets Stormfront Pegasus.
Hey, man.
That's a very, very good point.
Listen, Stormfront Pegasus is really strong. It is a 2/1 for 2 with flying.
I've drafted that card on many, many occasions. And the card that conjures Stormfront Pegasus is actually a legit house in the Jumpstart format. It's a 4 mana, so 3 and a white for a 2/3, and when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get the Pegasus into your hand. So it's a 4 mana 2/3, which is but it's draw a card, and that card is specifically a 2/1 flyer for 2. And then you can attack and get another one. So that's a pretty cute way for a white card to draw cards. So I don't mind that. I think that's a cool design aspect, if nothing else. So it's I like the idea of that.
So the conjure thing, by the looks of it, when a card says you're going to conjure something, it's going to be conjuring it from a specific list that is tied to that card. And this is something we'll probably get into when we talk about some of the previews a bit, but there's a card that's here on the article just to use as a good example. It's called Tome of the Infinite. It's 2 and a blue for a legendary artifact, has 1 and a blue tap. Conjure a random card from Tome of the Infinite's spellbook into your hand. It perpetually gains. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any colour to cast this spell. So that tells you that Tome of the Infinite has a spell book or a list of spells that it can conjure, and in the article here it has that list of spells. So we've got Light of Hope, Sword to Plowshares, Force Spike, Ponder, Dark Ritual, Duress, Assault Strobe, Lightning Bolt, Fog, Giant Growth. Whole bunch of pretty good spells there, and all 1 mana, which is nice. But I'm assuming, and again, this is something that you can only do. I mean, you could do it in paper, but it would be a pain in the backside. On digital, I'm assuming if you hover over Tome of the Infinite or you right-click on it or whatever, it will show you the list of spells that it can conjure from. And then you can look at those spells and see, oh, okay, yeah, there's some good spells in there. Hopefully I'll get that one or whatever. And that's something that really you can only do with a digital client. That's just virtually impossible in paper. So, yeah, pretty cool.
It's interesting because it's not like other Wish effects or anything like that where you have to reveal it either. It just
your opponent has no idea what you did.
So they've got no idea. Are they playing around swords? Are they playing around like lightning bolt or fog? Like you just, man.
It creates a bit of tension.
The mind games is going to be interesting on this one, that's for sure.
The tension in the games is going to be really fun. It's like, okay, I'm going to tap out to play this spell, and it's like, okay, Tome of the Infinite, can I get a Force Spike? That's a bit of fun, and I'm looking forward to that. And sometimes you get a fog, so it's or a light.
Sometimes you need a fog, man.
Yeah, and that's true. And I guess that list of things being useful, I'm going to attack in, I'm going to block. Okay, let me see if I get a Giant Growth and things like that. So it's a cute card. It's pretty fun. It's going to lead to some, enjoyable sort of good and bad beat stories, I think. Especially if it's like, oh, they activate it and got 3 lightning bolts in a row, so I just died. It's definitely a thing that could happen. So I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty fun.
I have a question about this. In Jumpstart, when you're playing, sure, fine, you have access to all these spells. In Historic, Lightning Bolt is banned.
Correct.
So what happens?
The card itself, Lightning Bolt, is banned, which means you can't put it in your deck.
Yeah,
but you can still just conjure it?
Yeah, you can still conjure it.
right.
It's like Swords to Plowshares is also banned, so is Dark Ritual.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, no, you're right. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So you can't submit a deck with a banned card. Yeah, but you can conjure one. You can conjure it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The thing with this is
that's
in
not
playing in paper. Playing in paper, if you can never have like a token in your hand. You can never have one of your opponent's spells in your hand. Anything like that. So in paper, there's a reason for that, because it would be very obvious the card that you've got in your hand. You just don't want that thing happening where you've got your opponent's card in your hand in a different sleeve to your cards and all that sort of stuff. It's just a recipe for disaster. But on Arena, well, the card is just in your hand and it has whatever digital card back you have on your cards, and your opponent doesn't know that is a fake spell that you just conjured up that you've just put into your hand, or a fake creature or whatever it is. It just looks like a normal everyday card and functions exactly the same. It is a card in every aspect. So the only question with this, which I haven't checked, is I'm assuming that card then goes to your graveyard.
Yeah.
Like when you cast it.
So Snapcaster Mage or whatever type effects. Yep.
Which is interesting.
Which is the first thing I thought when I saw Lightning Bolt on this list, right?
Bolt, snap, bolt, bring it on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what do you guys think about this from I'm looking forward to playing this. It sounds really fun from a Jumpstart perspective. But what do you think about this for
historic?
In constructed. Like, I don't think this is good enough, but like these cards in specifically, do you think this is going to have an impact on
looking at the list of all the cards that are coming in? Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, there's some real powerful cards coming in.
There's slivers, man.
I know. I will be playing, aiming to get slivers.
I guess there's sort of two things to look at in terms of that. So, like, obviously there's the Modern Horizons cards, which we'll get into. We might talk about those as actual previews and whatever, and we can go into individual cards, that sort of thing. But first thing, what do we think about this whole, random aspect, digital only stuff? Like, these three mechanics are basically copies of Hearthstone mechanics.
Okay, wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So these are things you've been able to do in Hearthstone for ages, because Hearthstone, again, is a digital game and it can pull random stuff. So like in Hearthstone, there are cards, like I haven't played Hearthstone for years now, but there's cards that when you cast them or whatever, it literally pulls a random card from all of Hearthstone and puts it into play, random creature. And so sometimes you get, a creature that's effectively like an 0-1, and other times you get some crazy legendary creature that literally wins you the game straight away. And it's super random RNG, really awesome when it happens to you and you get that win when you really shouldn't have won. But from your opponent's point of view, it sucks because they should have won the game and you just rolled the dice and got the 99 out of 100 sort of thing. So there's that aspect of it. There's, this whole splitting digital and paper, all that. So let's talk about that sort of stuff first, and then we'll get into individual cards. So where do you sit on it, Chew?
I think it's cool for a draft format, like a, casual thing, and that's what Jumpstart's there for. I'm uncomfortable with it from, where this is taking Magic and all the rest of it, but I'm not surprised by it. It was inevitable, and I think me being uncomfortable with it mostly comes from the place of being nostalgic about paper Magic, right? And
being old and not wanting change.
Yeah, I'm just a boomer. But and look, if we were still playing GPs, going to LGS every week, and hanging out and playing Magic, the world wasn't in the place that we were in, and this came out, I'd probably kind of nothing it. I'd go, oh yeah, cool format, and there's some new cards we could potentially play with. But is this another nail in them stopping printing paper Magic cards? Sometime over the next 5 years, I don't know. But maybe that's a bit pessimistic because they still make plenty of money out of doing that. But I think they're future-proofing themselves somewhat and starting to move some of their eggs, not all of the eggs, but some of their eggs into the Arena basket here, I think. So from an emotional perspective, don't love it. But if I just look at it as like cool new cards, a new way to play the game, all the rest of it, I think it's pretty sweet. So a little column A, a little column B for me.
Yep. I'm assuming seeing as this is the first time that they're doing it, like they've gone pretty conservative. It's only 31 cards, and I'm assuming they're all going to be probably not like pushed. Like they're going to be like this Tome of the Infinite, where it's 3 mana artifact. So effectively, it's 4 mana to conjure one random 1 mana spell. Probably not really what you want to be doing in Constructed. Can be powerful, can also be absolutely garbage when you get the spell that you don't want, like a fog. So I'm assuming they're going to be a lot along that line, but it's certainly setting the stage for them doing more of this. And yeah, we've spoken about this previously with the mirror format that they did, where they errated a whole bunch of cards and tried to make that change to see how they went. And Historic is exactly the place for them to do that sort of thing. Were you guys aware? I only found this out this week because Billy, who you guys know, who is Blaster Boy's nephew, my wife's cousin. That's confusing. He flicked me and Blaster Boy a message this week to say, hey, I'm getting back into Arena now that it's on my phone. That's awesome. Have a look at my list and see what you think. And he's playing Mono Red, so he picked the right people to send that message to. And I was looking at the list and I'm like, is this a Historic list? And he's like, no, I've been playing it in Standard. And there was cards like Raid Bombardment and what's the Raging Goblin and cards like that. And I'm like, these cards aren't in Standard. What are you playing? And I looked them up, and did you know there are a whole bunch of cards that are Arena-only prints that are not actually legal in Standard, but are legal in Standard on Arena?
Yes.
You did?
I did not know that.
From intro decks. So, I did know that.
Yep. So, like, you go on to Gatherer or Scryfall, and nope, they're not legal in Standard, but you can play them in Standard on Arena. So
not confusing at all.
Yeah, so this isn't actually a new thing, having the digital cards that are not actually legal in paper. So, yeah, very interesting, because his deck was cool. It was a cool, like, Goblin. It was sort of like the old Cavalcade of Calamity deck, but with Raid Bombardment. So, yeah, good fun. Anyway, that was a random point. Cracker, where do you sit on this whole digital new cards?
I'm fine with it, because it's just Historic. It's just a whole different thing. It's like being mad that they print new cards into Commander. Like, it's its own thing. If you were playing Historic in paper and then they went, oh, there's a whole new version of stuff, then I would be upset by it. But I mean, Historic has been its own beast since the day it was created. So fine, whatever. If you like it, cool. Then you're into Historic and you're only playing it on Arena anyway. So you're into that economy, and good luck with that. But if you're not and you want to play Standard or something else, then, they're a separate format. I'm fine with it. And as far as this being the death of Paper Magic, Wizards makes more money from Commander than anything else. So far it's not funny.
Yeah, so, no, as I said, future-proofing, and maybe
it's another thing, right? It just gives them a different space. Why not? Let them play.
Yeah, that's true. And look, maybe a nail in the coffin was taking it too far. Maybe they've selected the tree that they're going to make the coffin out of, and just in case they need to. And they haven't even cut it down yet, right? They haven't even got that far. So it's
Paper Magic isn't going anywhere. It's not going to happen.
Not in the next little while, but
not in the next 20 years.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. We thought that about the Pro Tour too, didn't we? So we'll see.
No, I never thought that.
Yeah, I thought the Pro Tour was going to end a long time ago.
I mean, the thing that for me is I'm just exhausted by this release schedule.
Oh, it's insane. There's so many cards all the time.
It's just, we have literally last cast given our first week impressions of the first few days of a new format. And here we are a week later talking about an entirely new set that, is trying to grab our attention. It's like, man, we didn't even get, I don't even know, 30 cards out of Adventures from the Forgotten Realms yet. Give me a break here. So I am exhausted by that. The problem is that I really did enjoy playing Jumpstart a lot. So I will want to play it again, and I will, but I don't know, man. There's only so many directions my attention can get pulled in at once.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with that as well. Particularly, and we'll touch briefly on Dungeons & Dragons Limited, but I've been really enjoying that format and I want to play it a lot. But I'm excited to play this as well. So I think it's great that they're bringing out something that is different. It would be good if we had this instead of stale old Standard, sure, but we have to kind of wait until it's very, much closer to the next set coming out as well. So not quite perfect timing from that perspective, but yeah, how do you keep up? It's really hard, and sometimes you just have to let whole formats go through to the keeper, right? Where you just don't touch historic for months on end, and just because there's other stuff that you want to do. So
then you got to spend $400 to get back into historic.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's all at once or stretched it out over time. The thing for me is it reminds me. One of the things I used to say that was said at my old job was that if everything is critical, nothing is critical, right? And so you can't just have constant hype and expect new sets and people to be excited about it all the time, because there's no downtime. There's no chance for us to appreciate what's here and then look forward to the next thing. It's just like, and here's AFR, and then 10 seconds later, I'm going to jam another thing in your throat. And it's like, just like, let me enjoy the toys you've given me before you give me, 700 new ones. Actual 700.
It's exactly right. And you just have to scroll through the list. Like I'm looking through on the link that you shared, and it's like Sterling Grove is right next to Sethis, right? Harvest Hand. And it's just like, well, we've had this like enchantment set not that long ago, and Sanctum Weaver, and we've got, this shrines and all the rest of it, right? So I'm just brewing in my mind as we're going through this list, and it's just, I don't have time to actually sit down and figure out if that's actually good. What impact is Esper Sentinel going to have on historic? Who knows?
That's for other people to figure out. I've given up on, like, I used to be the same. Like, a new set would come out and straight away it's like, oh, what can we do? Like, oh, this card's going to be really good in this deck. Let's start brewing things up, and I'm making deck lists on Goldfish and all that sort of thing, getting super excited and planning ahead, thinking what can I build? And now I don't even bother. Like, I just wait for a few weeks until the sets come out and other people have played and they work out what's good, and then it's like, okay, which one of those decks look like I want to play it, or which one can I afford with the wild cards that I have and the cards already in my collection, and that's just what I go with, because it's too much to keep up with. And this is a problem I've always had with Commander. Like, I know you guys brew up Commander decks every now and then. I just can't. There is way too many cards in that card pool that I'm just completely overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. And
if somebody
I just go, no, I just can't be bothered.
If somebody just called me randomly and said, hey, make me a Commander deck, I'll be like, nah, too hard. But when the inspiration hits, and you want to invest in it, that's when I get it. Like, something will come. Like, I was sorting my collection a little while ago and went, oh, I've got all of these Kamigawa shrines. I'm going to make it. And then they, like, 3 months later printed more, and now I have this, like, sweet enchantment Commander deck. But it came from, like, oh, this is something that doesn't exist in my playgroup, and it'd be an interesting space to explore. But, like, I've got to be inspired to brew. And, like, I'm seeing these cards like that, those enchantments, and I'm like, oh, they're cool. But then there's the other side of it as well. It's like, oh, Ninja of the Deep Hours. Oh, they're going to attack with their Thieves Guild Enforcer that's got Death Touch, so I'm not going to want to trade off it. Now it's going to be a Ninja of the Deep Hours. Then they're going to play the Thieves Guild Enforcer and mill me again. And, oh, my goodness, this is awful, right? So
wait, say that again? That sounds really good.
Yes, even I like that.
So I mean, that's going to happen.
Like, we'll get into the spoilers in just a second. So, like, I guess the last thing, like, I heard a lot of complaining from people about the D&D set with the random element, specifically the dice rolling, and that it's adding way too much RNG into a game that already has a ton of variance because of its like mana system, which Hearthstone doesn't have that problem. The way Hearthstone mana works, in case you don't know, is you start the game with, like, your first turn, you have access to 1 mana, and then turn 2, you have access to 2 mana, and turn 3 mana, and it goes up to 8 or 9 or something, I don't know, whatever it is. And so it just goes up by 1, like you're hitting a land drop every turn, and there's no colours of mana or anything like that. There's no lands at all. Whereas Magic has obviously 5, or technically 6 colours of Magic, and then you've got all your lands that do different things, and some come into play tapped and some don't. Some tap for 2 different colours of mana, or 3, and all this sort of stuff. So the whole, just the mana side of it in Magic is a huge amount of variance that's added to the game and complexity. When you then add on top of that random elements in the cards, that can annoy a lot of people and turn a lot of people off. We've seen it in the past with like coin flips and things like that. People build their coin flip decks.
Yeah, but it's not a perpetual, to borrow one of these terms, part of Magic. It's not like scry or cycling, right? It's not something that's in every set. So
when you're
just don't play the set,
that,
you don't like it, whatever.
No, but when you're printing that into Historic, which is a non-rotating format, it is there perpetually. So that's where I'm going to say, like, and I'm not complaining about it. I don't have a huge issue with it. But
I think those people are just like pessimists and should just jog on. But because when they have these cards, right? Like you look at the dice roll cards in AFR, and like none of them are busted, right? It's like I have a like 4-mana 3/3 that I roll a dice when it attacks, and it gives me 1 to 3 treasures. Like that, they're not format defining in a format as powerful as Historic. So these people just need to chill, man. Like I tell you what.
So the problem is, like, how many times have we seen Wizards balls it up with cards where they go, yeah, this card's going to be fine, and then they put it in the format and it's like, oh, hang on, this card's not fine.
Every second week, because that's how often I'm on.
Yeah, exactly. So at the moment you go, oh yeah, these cards look fine, like they're not overpowered, whatever. Someone will find a way to break it, and then that then leads to bannings and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's opening up an interesting space, but with these digital-only cards, like these 31 cards, they now have that space to be able to go, oh, okay, this card turned out to be more powerful than we thought. Okay, well, we can just change it. And it just changes on the client, and problem solved. So it will be interesting to see if they go down that line, because that is a whole nother space for them to work in.
Well, can they change the spells that are in the spell book, right? I guess yes, they can.
Of course they can.
Change it up. Yep.
So
yeah, sure. Definitely. All right. So let's have a talk about some of the cards from other sets that are getting printed into Horizons. Into Jumpstart Historic Horizons.
Historic Horizons, yeah.
Into Historic, whatever. Chewy, you can take us away with one that you like.
Well, this one is new to this set, the one that I was going to talk about. So it's not from an existing set printed into this, but I'll jump in and talk about it. But Davriel Soulbroker is a new Planeswalker, which is 2 and double black for 4 loyalty Planeswalker. It's got a +1 ability until your next turn. Whenever an opponent attacks you and or Planeswalkers you control, they discard a card. If they can't, then they sacrifice an attacking creature. Pretty good. -2. Accept one of Davriel's offers, then accept one of Davriel's conditions. So we'll get to that. -3 is target creature perpetually gets -3, -3. So using the perpetual thing, but then the offers, you have to jump onto the Wizards website to see those. so -2, and you accept each of these. So, it's a little give and a little take here. So the offers are draw 3 cards, conjure a Mana Guardian card to your hand, return 2 random creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. They perpetually get +1/+1. Return a random creature card with the highest mana value from amongst cards in your graveyard to the battlefield. Pretty good. You get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+0. You get an emblem with spells cost black less to cast. You get an emblem with Davriel Planeswalkers you control have +2 draw a card. You get an emblem with whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. That all sounds really good. But then there's a downside. So this is a black card through and through where, they're really greatness at any cost, right? All of this power comes with a cost, a downside, a drawback. You lose 6 life, exile 2 cards from your hand. If you got fewer, then the cards, if you don't have 2 cards in your hand, your opponent's draw cards towards the difference. Sacrifice 2 permanents. Each creature you don't control gets +1/+1 perpetually. You get an emblem with creatures you control get -1/-0. You get an emblem with spells you cast costs black Mortarcast. You get an emblem with whenever you draw a card, exile up to 2 cards of your library. And you get an emblem with at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each creature you control. So this feels a little bit like the Demonic Pact
It feels like Urza's head from the Silver Borders set, man. That's what it feels like.
Yeah,
can anyone remember what Chewy just said there? I just tuned out for about 5 minutes as he rattled off a bunch of things.
Well, you'll get these options. They'll just come up, right? And
so the way it actually is going to work on Arena is you're given 3 options. So you don't get all of these every time. So there are however many offers and conditions. 3 random offers will pop up, and then 3 random conditions will pop up. So I don't know if you're going to have access to see all of these conditions all the time. I just went to find the conditions, and I had to Google. I couldn't even find it. I had to Google it to try and find where these conditions were. It certainly wasn't on the link for the card, and I couldn't find it on the Jumpstart article either.
Nope, found it's on a separate, different page.
Yep. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see them all the time, but at least by only popping up 3 at a time, it means you're not sitting there for 10 minutes having to read them and go, which one do I want, which one don't I want, and whatever.
So the people that were complaining about the variants of dice rolls are, sort of sweating now and getting even angry. You know that meme where there's that teenager with the vein popping out of his forehead? There's a lot of people doing that right now, I guess, because it's more randomness and whatever. Don't play the format if you don't like it. But I think this is a very cool card. You look at this and you go, this does like some sweet things, and it gets away from the same play patterns every time. It makes you have to adapt, and sometimes things are going to go really well and sometimes they're not. And I get, if you're playing high stakes Magic, you want things that are reliable, right? I completely understand. I get that. But if you're paying 2,000 gold and you just want to have some fun, like, this is pretty sweet. I quite like this from a design space perspective, but I think it's too random to really get a gig in any sort of constructed deck. So it's it's a good representation of what the format's trying to do from a fun and enjoyment, not a win-loss perspective. So that's why this card stood out to me.
Yeah, cool. Cracker, give us one of yours.
Yeah. Another new card. This one is called Sarkhan's Scorn. It is 2 and a red for an instant, and it said, Sarkhan's Scorn deals damage equal to the number of turns you have begun to target creature or planeswalker. So, assuming you cast this on curve, it will be a 3-mana deal 3, and on the next turn, it'll be a 3-mana deal 4. And then on the next turn, it'll be a 3, and so on and so forth. Only to creatures and planeswalkers, but I think that's really interesting. And because it's an instant, it's the number of turns you've begun. So as soon as you hit your untap step, then you can, that would be the beginning of your turn, you can then deal damage equal to whatever it is. So,
and this is a card that it would just be so difficult to track in paper.
Impossible, because you can't just count in lands. Like, that's a normal way to do it. You're like, oh, but I missed a land drop, and then, no. There's no good way of tracking it. But here it will just show you on the arena how much damage it's going to do.
Yep. Cool.
Weird. Cool.
I like it.
Yeah. Couple of other things that, we talked about Ponder. Ponder's great. I love it, but you can only conjure it. It's not actually going to be in the set. There's a couple of things that I really enjoyed playing in past standards, which was Diagraph Colossus and also, disappeared. Dark Salvation. A couple of zombie cards from Eldritch Moon and Shadows of Innistrad. I don't think they will be good enough for Historic, but they're a lot of fun. I reckon there'll be a pretty sweet zombies packet that you can get. I'll be looking for one of those.
That's pretty good. I like the idea of Return to the Ranks as a constructed card as well, but might be able to build something around that. What about you, Shorty?
We've got Rally the Ancestors already in Historic, don't we?
No idea. It's the format.
I'm pretty sure.
How could you possibly know?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was in like one of the anthologies or something like that.
5 minutes to Google that.
Yeah, exactly. What about you, Shorty? What are you excited about?
So for me, I haven't seen any of the new digital only cards that I'm super excited about yet. But we've got a few cards that have just recently come in from Modern Horizons 2, and one of them in particular, which is seeing a ton of play in Modern at the moment, is Dragon's Rage Channeler, which is surprisingly a single red mana for a 1/1. It's a human shaman, and it says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, surveil one, so that's where you can look at the top card of your library and then either...
If it's a bin chicken, you put it in the graveyard?
Yeah, either leave it there or put it in your graveyard, so yeah, it works pretty good with phoenixes and things like that. And then it also has Delirium, which was a mechanic from the Shadows over Innistrad block as well, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
Which is as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So, say an instant, a land, a sorcery, and an artifact. There you go. You've got 4 card types in your graveyard. Then an effect happens. So the effect for Dragon's Rage Channeler is it gets +2/+2, has flying, and attacks each combat if able. So it's a 1 mana 3/3 with flying that has to attack each combat if able. Oh no, what a shame that is that it has to attack each combat.
Why would a 1 mana red creature possibly want to attack each turn?
No
Non-goblin
idea,
welder red creature. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this card's going straight into Phoenix decks. It wants to be played in a deck with spells, and it is good at putting things in your graveyard and likes when you have things in your graveyard. So yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing this card. I'm pretty sure it's seen playing in Legacy as well.
Yeah, this is
a powerful card.
Better than Delver, according to some people. So
yeah, I know. Like when MH2 first came out, people were playing. Is it Delver decks? So playing this card with Delver and cards like Swift Spear and those sorts of things. And in the end, they just went, we actually don't need Delver. So they're still playing Delver decks. People still call them Delver decks, but there's no Delver in there anymore.
Yeah, they're playing this on Ragavan.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see if we get Ragavan in this set. That'll be pretty nice. But the other thing I like about this card is it's an uncommon, not a rare or anything like that. So
I've got a couple more rares that are seeing a bunch of play. Esper Sentinel and Thalia's Lieutenant. Are we going to get a full-on humans deck in Historic?
I think it's pretty likely. There's also the Ranger Captain of Eos.
Absolutely.
It's the 3 mana 3/3 that goes and fetches a creature with mana value 1 or less.
There's already Thalia as well. Is there both Thalias in Historic? There's at least one.
There's definitely the original.
Yeah. So it's a... I mean, there's a shell there, definitely, right?
I mean, it's not going to be 5-color humans like you play in Modern, but there's probably a pretty good white aggressive disruptive deck.
Yeah, I think so. There's
at a minimum.
Yep.
Black-white humans.
Yeah.
Yep, something along those lines. Yep. It's worth noting as well, the Planeswalker that Chewy talked about, Davriel, there's going to be one for each colour. So we've already seen a Kiora and a Sarkhan. But don't think we've seen the other 2 yet. But interestingly, the Sarkhan is a 4 mana, 4 loyalty planeswalker, has a 0 ability, which is conjure a Shivan Dragon into your hand, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. And I mentioned Ninja of the Deep Hours as well. I think that will be definitely worth testing in Rogues. So there's a lot of evasive creatures in Rogues that will get turned into a ninja, and then you get the comes into play abilities.
Mono blue tempo cracker with your ninjas.
Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good.
I like it. Yeah, I think the format's past mono blue tempo by, unfortunately. As much as I loved playing that deck. Yeah, it's a bit underpowered these days. So
I don't know if you guys have other cards that you want to talk about, but just another point to make. Historic was, when it was first created, we kind of laughed it off, I guess, as just we're not going to bother playing that format. It was originally intended to be the format where you can just play your standard decks that have rotated out. It is so far from that now. Like, your standard decks are gone. It's effectively like saying, when standard rotates, you can play your standard decks in Modern. No, you can't. That just doesn't happen. Yeah. Yes, you can.
It won't end well.
No. So that is a bit unfortunate because, it does mean, as in the same way that Modern is in paper, there's a steep cost to get into that format if you're just coming into Magic, which is a bit of a shame because, it is nice when you've got something useful to do with all those cards you just spent your wild cards on, and unfortunately Arena doesn't have any sort of dusting system. Maybe we'll get that, seeing as we're taking all these mechanics from Hearthstone.
Absolutely.
So a dusting system.
One last thing before we move on. My brain is just going overtime trying to figure out how to get 15 mana to activate Pool of Vigorous Growth and get me an Emrakul. So it's X and tap, discard a card, create a token that's a copy of a random creature card with mana value X, activated as a sorcery. So if I have 15, how many 15 mana creatures are there in Magic? It can't be.
I think there's 2 or 3.
Yeah. So chances are you could get OG Emrakul on Arena. That would be pretty sweet.
Is it going to let you get any card, any creature? I'm assuming it would be any creature
a token that's a copy of random creature card.
I can't find this card.
Pool of Vigorous Growth. Oh, yeah, it's complete jank, but it's, my
Have you played Momi and Vig on Magic Online? Because that's what this is.
Okay.
It is exactly this. X, discard a card, create a token that's a copy of a random card with value X.
Yeah,
that's
right.
it.
So Pool of Vigorous Growth, they've done a nice little,
nice,
back there.
Nice.
Yep. Looking forward to this. Cracker, I'm looking forward to your stream. And from a constructed perspective, there's some cards here that are going to, shake up the format a little more. And I feel like we've just had a format shake up. We just had a banning. But, it's...
Yeah, it leads to the question of why did they just ban Brainstorm? Why couldn't they just wait till this set comes in, see how the format goes, and then make the changes? It just kind of didn't really seem to make much sense. The last card I just want to quickly mention, again being another red card, Unholy Heat, which is also seeing a ton of play in Modern, which is a single red for an instant, deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. We've seen that heaps of times. Yep, that's fine. But it also has Delirium, and when you've got Delirium, so you've got the 4 or more card types in your graveyard, it deals 6 damage instead. So, again, only going to creatures and planeswalkers, but 6 damage for 1 mana is pretty good. And if you're playing it in a deck with the Dragon's Rage Channeler, you are aiming to trigger Delirium.
Stuffy Doll is in Historic.
Mishra's Bauble.
Yes, I was going to say, all we need in Historic is Mishra's Bauble, and we're off to the races. Luris, Mishra's Bauble, Dragon's Rage Channeler. Oh,
just playing Modern in Arena, man.
Yep, sounds good.
Love it.
I'm all in. All right, so on to the next topic. We'll be seeing a whole bunch more of the previews for that probably next week, and I'm assuming by the next podcast that'll be probably the entire preview. So we can discuss that more next week, and probably another banning and another new set and whatever else. Yeah, next thing we wanted to touch on is World. So the World Championships that's happening this year in October 8th to the 10th. We'll probably talk about this again closer to the date. But they announced the formats to it, and it's going to be split format, one of them being being standard, which is post-rotation standard because it is after the Innistrad set comes out. But the other format is draft. So I believe, I can't remember if it was Worlds or another event that they did last year. There was a high-profile event last year, maybe it's been the year before, I don't know. But it was an arena event, and they did split format. They did draft and standard, or draft and historic, something along those lines. And for the draft portion, we were all speculating, does that mean they're gonna do the drafts on arena? No. Turns out what they did was they drafted in paper, and then inputted the deck lists into arena, so then the players could play them, which was really disappointing and led to Andrea Mengucci getting a game loss because his deck was entered incorrectly. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that this time, I'm being optimistic. I don't know how they can do that again this time. Like, Worlds is 16 players, I believe.
Yeah.
Like, there is virtually no chance that they can actually get all 16 players together in October this year. I'm assuming, like, just with the way the world is in international travel and that sort of stuff, which means, surely they're not going to do the draft on Magic Online and then import that into Arena. Like, if they have to go to that point, that extent, it's like, just why?
No.
What do you think? Like, is it going to happen?
It's going to happen. It's got to. It really has to. Like, it's not just us that have been spruiking about this, about getting custom draft pods so you can draft with your friends. This is something that a lot of people want, particularly, as you mentioned, the world we live in, where we can't draft with our friends. So
yeah, I mean, we would love it, so we can run a beans events in Limited and things like that. It would just be amazing.
Yeah. So surely they can do that in client, and you can just invite people off your friends list and such. So that would be amazing to be able to do that. And I am crossing my fingers. I know a bunch of people in our Discord are also crossing our fingers to be able to do that as well, because it would just be really, really fun. It's like, how good would it be when like Cube Draft is out on Arena? They do different iterations of Cube, where we can go, righto, we're streaming, and our stream this night, we're going to get Jedi's Walker and J-Mud and Hemsy and a bunch of us, and we're going to play Cube together. Like, That just sounds amazing.
Amazing.
Bring it on, Debs.
I just picture like being able to watch the draft and have an actual proper, like, be able to look at what the player has picked, live, and hover over the cards and see what those cards are, and then see, the packs as they go around and all that sort of stuff. Like, just how I never watch Limited. Like, any time there was a Pro Tour, it was like, okay, well, I just don't watch the first few hours because it's horrible to watch people drafting and not being able to see what's going on, not having any idea. The most recent ones they did, which is like 2 years ago now, they started getting better at doing that, but it was just never very good and it wasn't really interesting to watch. If you can do it in client and do it properly, oh man, it's just going to be so much better. So
yeah, I agree. It's
let's all cross our fingers.
It's only a benefit, right? There's no downside to them doing it, and please just make it available to everybody as well.
Yeah, and I just think how embarrassing to have to do your draft off client and then import the deck list. Like, that's embarrassing from a marketing perspective or whatever, like, for your company to say, we've got this amazing client, that is an esport, and it can't do this basic function that it really should have been able to do right from the start. So hopefully, fingers crossed, let's see if that happens.
I think there'll be some of those 16 players that qualified for Worlds. Some of them will be really happy that there is a limited portion, and some will be pretty flat about it. I think there's going to be some, changing of the odds, if there was betting on who is going to win based on the introduction of a limited portion, I believe. So I think it's going to be, I think that's better, because I think to be good at, truly the world champion, you should be good at not just picking the right deck that weekend, playing the game on a different axis to show off your skill and actually be the best. I think it's a better test, and we'll have a more worthy world champion at the end of it. So I love that.
I agree. All right, so last thing we'll touch on the way out the door is just an update on our league. So, Cracker, how are the leagues going? How are the groups looking?
They've all started. We've got a long way to go, though. So we're a couple of weeks in. We're about halfway, and we are nowhere near halfway in terms of the total number of matches played. So, look, it's good. Been some really good banter in my group, a bunch of people chatting, and, it's good to see that. But, I mean, myself included, need to pull a finger out and just, get cracking on these matches. Because, I mean, the group Chewy is currently in the lead and has got just over a third of their matches played. So, given that we're halfway, the maths doesn't add up. If we continue at the same pace, and everyone else is way further behind. So
each group also has people that have not played a match yet. So harass those people and get some of those matches played over the weekend. Particularly if you haven't yet played against Shorty in Group Shorty, please play against him. His record is...
Why are you saying that?
Well, I think your last match was a loss, so we'll start then.
I ended the night with a win.
Oh, okay.
I mean, your record's not much worse than mine. So I'm sitting on 7-1 somehow, still on top of my group. Surprisingly, Rolling Royce, disappointing, is sitting at 5-4. Like, come on, mate, you've got a reputation to uphold. But, Chewy, you're sitting on 6-2, so you're not far off of me.
Yeah, I've decided to not play meme decks this time around and actually play Magic. But
wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, Cracker didn't get that memo.
No, I didn't.
And Stu's also not having a great run of it, but that means that others in his group are. So good thing to.
He's in the race to the bottom with Infect rules.
He is. But yeah, like we've played some matches on stream, Shorty, and that's been really fun and a really good way to get those done. So we'll try to stream, once a week during the group matches to sort of inspire people to go. And what really, really important is every match that you play in the week puts you into the weekly draw for Josh and Pat's vouchers and the weekly prize of a collector booster as well. So a lot of incentive to get your matches played during each week. Don't leave them all to the end, because you're going to, lower your odds of picking up one of those sweet prizes as well. So it's a no-brainer. Like, we're all stuck at home, nothing else to do. Might as well play some Beans League matches, right?
Yep. Shout out to Squid Plays, who's been doing really well in all of our events for the last year, pretty much. So sitting on 9-1 in Group Stew. So I think that should probably be locked for finals by now.
Yeah. Definitely.
So
9-4.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit hard, like, because we have like extra matches this time because the groups are so big. But I would say that's probably a lock, because I believe Stu's group has 2 people, one person who never showed up and one person who has just pulled out. So yeah, there'll be an extra couple of games written off there. But what I would recommend, if you are listening and you are playing in our leagues, start direct messaging people. I have found over the time that we've been running these leagues, a lot of people mute our server, which I really wish they didn't. I want them to be being involved in our Discord server all the time, but people mute channels and mute your server and that sort of stuff. So even if you ping them in your group chat, they may not necessarily get that. Whereas if you message them directly, if they're on Discord at all, they're going to see your direct message. Message them, reach out. Hey, I want to play our game. Probably what I would suggest is put forward some times, different times of the week or a couple of time slots on the weekend, that sort of thing, and see how you go with that. And at least that way, if they never respond to you, you can then contact your group captain and say, hey, look, I've contacted this person 3 times over the last 2 weeks and they just haven't responded. And then we can then look at, writing off that match and awarding you the win if the person's not gonna bother coming to play it. So yeah, definitely direct message people. It's going to be a bit easier to get in contact with them that way.
Yeah, get proactive, right?
Yes, definitely. So that's basically it. The last reminder is the Twitter giveaway, which is still going. So there's about another 2 weeks left on that. So if you haven't entered that yet, go and do it. Just look for us on Twitter, Magic Beans Cast. Check the pinned tweet on our profile, and you'll find the Twitter giveaway for a full draft box of Modern Horizons 2. We've just been talking about a bunch of those cards that are coming to Historic. There's a lot of value in that set. So yeah, get in on that. Just, retweet it, follow us.
$350 Australian dollar giveaway there. That's
and
massive.
the EV on the box is way more than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so get in on that. It's easy to find, super easy to do. Go and do that. And yeah, we will send that to wherever you are in the world. So check it out. If you do want to get in on our leagues, our future leagues and events, there's still a few to come this year, still a chance for you to qualify for our invitational. The best place to do that is to be in our Discord. We've had a few new people joining over the last week or so, which is awesome to see. We love it as if people come and join us. So yeah, jump in there, get in into our awesome community and have a chat. Plenty of different channels for you to talk about whatever you want in there. If you want to support us directly, you can buy something from our merch store, t-shirts, hoodies, mouse pads, mugs, those sorts of things. There's a link for that in the show notes. If you want to show some support to our sponsors, you can go to jpmtgbazaar.com.au and check out their daily auctions, grab yourself some bargains and let them know that the Beans sent you. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter, all of those places. Just search for Magic Beans or Magic Beans Cast, and you will find us there. If you want to find me on Twitter, I am at Peace Inc. Chewy, you are?
At Chewy MTG.
And Cracker?
At JoelHill_.
Very good. So that's going to do us for this week. Thank you, as always, for listening. Stay safe out there, and we will see you all next time.